and welcome. Tonight on the news at 10, former Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo calls for stronger institutions across Africa to curb bad governance and corruption. Federal government and FCT contractors take to the streets protesting non-payments for completed projects. President Bola Tinubu touches down in Tokyo to join other African leaders at the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development. And U.S. President Donald Trump says that Washington will work with both Ukraine and Russia to seek lasting peace, raising hopes that the trilateral meeting could end the war.
In our business, Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum, Gas and Petroleum reaffirms Nigeria's clean energy commitments after commissioning a new LPG vessel in South Korea.
On sports news tonight, FIFA President Gianni Infantino condemns racism after incident at German Cup games.
And from the nation's capital, at least 30 feared dead, 25 others rescued in a boat mishap at Kogio local government area, and that is Kogio village in Goronyo local government area of Sokoto state.
Tonight, we begin with a charge from the former president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, who has identified weak and opaque institutions, corruption, limited political accountability, and poor public services as some of the challenges militating against good governance in Africa. Addressing participants at the Calls 33 of the National Defense College in Abuja, Mr. Akufo-Addo says that Africa has the inherent capacity to overcome the threats against strong institutions through reforms that can change the governance landscape. The former president also stressed the need for African leaders to stop engaging in intimidation of opposition, media censorship, and restriction of civil society activities that damage democratic institutions.
The hall is filled to capacity as participants of Course 33 of the National Defense College converge for the graduation lecture of the college. Setting the tone for the lecture, the commandant of the college highlights some of the security challenges bedeviling Nigeria as a nation.
In recent times, Nigeria has witnessed several security challenges, which include militancy in the Niger Delta, banditry, insurgency in the northwest and northeast, secessionist agitations in the southeast, cattle rustling in the north central, as well as kidnapping in various parts of the country.
According to the Minister of Defense, addressing issues of insecurity remains a priority of the federal government.
Permit me at this point to mention that under the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu, GCFR, Nigeria is committed to this path of strengthening institutions for efficient governance. Evidently, leadership appointments, reforms, and new frameworks are deliberately designed to enrich accountability, professionalism, and coordination.
Delivering a lecture on strengthening institutions for good governance in Africa, the guest lecturer identifies weak institutions and corruption as major challenges hampering the growth of Africa.
Governance is still one of Africa's greatest challenges. Weak and sometimes opaque institutions, corruption, limited political accountability, and poor public services hold us back. These problems have deep roots in our colonial past, a past that broke traditional systems, drew artificial borders, and took resources without building strong foundations. Again, since independence, progress has been slowed by authoritarian rule, fragile democracies, and conflict. The result? Political instability, uneven economic growth, and democratic institutions that still need strengthening.
Beyond the challenges, he prefers some solutions.
So what is the way forward to strengthening institutions for good governance in Africa? The solution is certainly not linear, but multifaceted, multi-layered, and multidimensional. Africa's path to stronger institutions is not one size fits all. It requires multiple strategies, tighter oversight, digital transparency, inclusive nation building, fiscal reform, active citizen participation, and stronger legal systems. Above all, our capacity to raise our own funds to finance our development stands out as the most pressing need for good governance and development.
The graduation lecture is part of activities lined up for the graduation ceremony of the National Defense College Course 33.
We head to Plateau State now, where the Special Task Force, Operation Safe Haven, has handed over more than 200 recovered illegal weapons to the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons. The exercise, which took place at the headquarters of the task force in Jos, the Plateau State capital, is part of the federal government's strategy to curb the proliferation of small arms, fueling insecurity in Nigeria.
Displayed at the headquarters of the Special Task Force of Operation Safe Haven are 220 assorted small arms and light weapons, including 84 Dane guns, 66 locally fabricated rifles, 27 AK-47 rifles, pistols, mortars, and over 1,000 rounds of ammunition.
You can have a look at all the weapons that have been recovered.
The commander of Operation Safe Haven said the weapons were recovered during raids, cordon and search operation, stop and search patrols, and engagement with criminal groups across Plateau and neighboring states.
Operation Safe Haven has recorded tremendous successes in stemming the tide of criminal attacks on communities and individuals. Both kinetic and non-kinetic approaches have been employed at community, local governments, as well as state levels to ensure the mandate of the operation is achieved. The combined effect of our efforts have led to the neutralization of numerous bandits in meeting engagements, arrest of suspects, recovery of weapons, as well as the arrest of gun runners and prosecution of those culpable in fanning the embers of crisis in our areas of operation.
Receiving the weapons, the representative of the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons commended the troops for their efforts and stressed that the handover will aid the national campaign against illegal arms circulation.
I want to use this opportunity to commend the leadership of Operation Safe Haven for these recoveries and to remind the press that this is not the first time we're having this kind of recovery and collection from this from the Operation Safe Havens. 2023, a sizable number of weapons were also recovered here. Today, we are here to take over more. I want to appreciate them for their patriotic and for their resilience in ensuring that we have a society that is free, devoid of illicit arms and light weapons.
Operation Safe Haven also called on the public to continue supporting security agencies with timely information as part of efforts to secure lives and property.
Aggrieved indigenous contractors who allegedly executed projects for the federal government and their counterparts from the Federal Capital Territory have staged a protest in the nation's capital, Abuja, demanding the immediate payment for all completed projects since 2024. According to the contractors, the government has refused to meet its obligations to them, even with the completion and commissioning of the said projects by the government. The federal contractors are threatening to occupy the streets and embassies in Abuja until their demands are met. Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance says the federal government has paid all outstanding debts for the year 2024.
These protesters occupy the entrance leading to the Federal Capital Territory Secretariat in Abuja. They are contractors who claim to have executed projects for the FCT administration but are yet to be paid. The messages displayed on their placard summarizes their frustration, just as the leader of the protesters states their demand.
We are using this medium to appeal to the minister to please, for the sake of God, make this payment, because we've lost some of our members. Some of them have lost their properties due to this bank loan and interest. So we are appealing to him. This is going to 2 years now. So we are appealing to him to please pay this fund.
However, a swift reaction from the office of the FCT minister dismissed the claims. A statement by the senior special assistant to the Minister on Public Communication says the minister never awarded 5 billion naira contracts to local contractors. Apart from raising doubts, the statement also challenged the contractors to come with proof.
All we are saying.
At a separate event, members of the Indigenous Contractors Association of Nigeria gathered for a news conference to protest the non-payment of over 6 billion naira owed by the federal government for projects executed since 2024.
We are telling the government that they should do what they're supposed to do to make sure they clear our debt. How can we borrow money to pay tax, borrow money to execute a project of the federal government? Our lawmakers will come in various constituencies, in various senatorial districts to commission the project, and money is not paid for over a year now. That's why we are here.
Beyond this conference, the contractors are threatening to occupy embassies and government offices should the government fail to meet their obligations within the next 7 days.
If these demands are not yet addressed immediately, we will proceed with our peaceful protest in accordance with our earlier resolution. We will start by visiting most of the embassies, foreign embassies. We will come out with our families, our workers. We will not rest.
However, the Minister of Finance on Thursday responded to the allegations of federal government's indebtedness to indigenous contractors.
In the last quarter, we did pay two contractors over 2 trillion to settle outstanding capital budget obligations, and that was from last year. And so we, as a movement, have no pending obligations that are not being processed and financed.
Apart from authorizing ministries and parastatals to pay contractors who have finished their projects, the protesters want the government to back such authorization with cash so they can be paid.
In part 2, after the break, the California Africa Climate and Economic Delegation seek new investment opportunities in Nigeria. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. Former Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo calls for strong institutions in Africa to tackle bad governance and corruption. The federal government and the FCT contractors protest non-payment and for executed projects. President Bola Tinubu arrives in Tokyo for the 9th TICAD Summit. And U.S. President Donald Trump says a trilateral meeting with Russia and Ukraine could pave way for lasting peace. Senate President Godswill Akpabio has returned to the country after a brief vacation in London. Upon his return, he dismissed rumors that he was critically ill and had been hospitalized in the United Kingdom. Senator Akpabio had earlier attended the 6th World Conference of Speakers of Parliament in Geneva, held between July the 29th to the 31st. before proceeding to London for the short break. The Senate President arrived at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, at about 4 a.m. on Monday, where he was received at the presidential wing by senators, aides, and supporters from different walks of life. Speaking with journalists upon his arrival, he assured Nigerians of stronger parliamentary engagements when the Senate resumes.
Before the evolution of oil, crude oil, governments, communities were run through taxes and through contributions. So Nigeria is looking at that era. So we are looking at a post-oil economy, post-gas economy. What can we do? We must exist. And so that's what the tax reform has done. And we also looked at the most vulnerable in the society, particularly people who earn below 1 million naira. Should they be paying taxes? And then we also mentioned to them the fact that if you are on a minimum wage, you don't need to pay tax. And this is part of the innovation that this administration has brought to bear. And the world was quite impressed. We also told them legislations that are in the making, such as the gender equality issue. We may not achieve gender equality, but we said gender inclusion. We want to make sure that we have more women in the parliament. And so we are trying to look at ways and means of achieving that, to ensure that next time we come to the Senate, for instance, we will not have only 3 or 4 women in the Senate. We should have more women in the Senate. And then, of course, we made sure we did not touch the seat of senators. So that means that we are tinkering with parts of the Constitution to see where we can include more women in the Parliament without necessarily touching the current constituencies that have been created by the current Constitution. So many other amendments. And they were quite happy, at least judging from the ovation that we had. So thereafter, I proceeded to 1 or 2 countries because we are on vacation.
President Bola Tinubu has arrived in Tokyo, Japan for the first leg of his 2-nation trip, which is to end in Brazil. He arrived at 1 a.m. local time from Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, where he had stopped over following his departure from Nigeria on Friday. President Tinubu is in Japan to attend the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development in the city of Yokohama from August the 20th, with a theme, Co-Create Innovative Solutions with Africa. The conference will focus on Africa's economic transformation and improvements in the business environment and institutions through private investment and innovation. In addition to attending plenary sessions on themes linked to the conference, the Nigerian president will hold bilateral meetings and meet with the chief executive officers of some Japanese companies with investments in Nigeria. At the end of the conference, President Tinubu is to proceed to the Republic of Brazil on a 2-day state visit from Sunday, August the 24th to Monday, August the 25th. Nigeria appears poised to further attract foreign investment, especially in climate-related businesses. This formed the crux of a gathering in Lagos over the weekend, where an economic delegation from California in the United States met with top business executives at an event put together by commercial law firm George Atomi and Partners. The event provided an opportunity for both sides to explore areas of mutual interest that will see America's biggest state make some inroads into Africa's most populous nation.
It is an evening of fun and relaxation as members of the California Africa Climate and Economic Delegation interact with top business executives from Nigeria in Lagos. The event, organized by commercial law firm George Atomi and Partners, aims to provide a platform for America's biggest state in terms of economy to explore investment opportunities in the country.
In order to ensure that the things that we want come to fruition, We are very committed as a state, because California is the 4th largest economy in the world. So we have a lot of resources. We have commitment to climate change and addressing that with partners. And our secretary, Tokes Omashakin, who is also Nigerian, is very committed, and we're supporting him as the California Energy Commission to help ensure that we are addressing all of the issues that Nigeria would be interested in partnering with us.
Starting with a cocktail, guests had the opportunity to interact on areas of mutual interest.
Policy and partnership that have the power to drive economic growth.
Then it's down to the business of the night. Why is California interested in Nigeria, or indeed Africa?
The purpose of our California Africa Economic Delegation is to strengthen government to government, business to business, and people-to-people ties between California and Nigeria. By doing this, we will enhance our work to formalize ongoing climate and trade partnerships between our respective places. Some key areas of collaboration with the Bay Area Council and UC Davis in Nigeria include clean transportation, clean energy, digital technology, the creative economy, climate-smart agriculture, and university partnerships, just to name a few.
Climate-related businesses is at the core of this gathering, and the reasons are obvious. Nigeria's fast-growing population and California's population.
Please, can we raise up our glasses and toast to the future of Nigeria's relationship to the United States?
The evening rounds up with a toast to greater opportunities for investments and collaborations between Africa's largest economy and California, which boasts of a GDP of over $4 trillion, the 4th largest in the world, ranking only behind the United States, China and Germany. Ewaoluwa Ogunbodede, Channels Television News.
The news at 10 continues now. We head over to Abuja Studios, where Millicent Walker is standing by. Hello, Millicent.
Hi, Anne. Lovely to see you. We begin on a tragic note where a joint search and rescue operation is still ongoing by officials of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and also the National Inland Waterways Authority at a village in Goronyo, where over 50 persons involved in a boat mishap resulted in the rescue of 25 people. The head of NEMA Sokoto Operations Office, Aliyu Shehu Kafindangi, says over 25 persons are still missing, as he frowns at the attitude of members of riverine communities who disregard safety measures.
Members of Kojio community are thrown into mourning following a boat mishap involving over 50 persons, including traders and market women heading to Goronyo Weekly Market. Following the incident, officials of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority commenced rescue operations. It is 24 hours since the rescue operation started, with no fewer than 25 people still missing, while 25 persons have been rescued alive. Officials blame non-adherence to safety measures, overloading, and other misconduct for the incessant boat mishaps.
Enforcement of transportation court is the only solution. Don't do this. If you do it, you will be finalized. We take you to the nearest police station. Then we have a transportation court being gazetted by the federal government. The Federal Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy are trying with all other agencies to make sure that this transportation court is being enforced throughout the country.
It was overloaded with over 50 passengers. And then when it capsized, 25 were rescued with 7 motorcycles, and all the pump there were salvaged. But up to this moment, as I'm speaking with you, we haven't retrieved any body. So as far as Argungu, to be were alerted so that if they see any floating body, they should help us retrieve and then inform the proper authority.
Families of victims plead with authorities to improve water transportation system in the riverine communities. Although the state government has donated 100 bags of grains and 20 million naira to support affected members of the community, the ongoing bridge construction in the area will soon be completed. In addition, the government has provided life jackets and motorized boats, which will be distributed across 6 local government areas: Gorenyo, Sabon Birni, Isa, Wamako, Kware, and Shagari.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum reaffirms Nigeria's clean energy commitment after commissioning a new LPG vessel in South Korea. That's all business news. Do join us again. You're watching Channels Television, coming to you from our Abuja studios. Well, we take you to northwestern Nigeria, where residents of Kebbi State are expressing concerns over the devastating flood that continue to ravage communities, destroy homes, leaving many residents homeless. The ongoing floods have damaged bridges, houses and farmlands, not only in local communities, but also in the state capital. Makera, a community in Beni Kebbi local government area, has been particularly hard hit as the flood left many residents struggling to protect their families. We head to education now, where the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has inaugurated a special committee to investigate cases of technology-driven malpractices detected during the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME. Now, speaking at the inauguration of the 23-member special committee in Abuja, the Registrar of JAMB, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, decried the rising sophistication of examination fraud, resulting in the result of 6,458 candidates still under investigation for alleged involvement in high-tech cheating. According to the professor, examination malpractice has evolved beyond traditional schemes into technologically sophisticated forms, including multiple cases of biometric and identity fraud by some accredited CBT centers and candidates. Professor Oloyede, while stressing the need for urgent action to protect the credibility of examinations, announced the terms of reference for the committee.
The terms of reference of the committee is to investigate all reported cases of image blending, finger blending, false claim of albinism, and result falsification in the 2025 examination admission. Number 2, identify the methods, pattern, tools, and technologies used to perpetrate this infraction. 3, review current examination and registration policies and recommend improvements. 4, determine the culpability or otherwise of each of the 6,458 suspected candidates whose results, excluding the albinism group, are still being withheld. 6,458. Recommend appropriate disciplinary actions or sanction against individuals or groups found culpable. Propose a proactive framework for the detection, deterrence, and prevention of technologically enabled examination fraud in future exercises.
And that's it from the nation's capitals. Now back to Anne for more on the news at 10.
Thank you, Millicent. The chairman of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Mr. Mohammed Shehu, has announced the commencement of the process for review of the revenue allocation formula. The chairman of the commission, who made this announcement at a news conference, says the review has become necessary following current economic reality since it was last reviewed in 1992. Under the current revenue allocation formula, the federal government gets a share of 52.6%, 26.7% for state government and 20.6% for local government, while 1% is allocated to each of the Federal Capital Territory, the Ecological Funds Office, Natural Resources, and the Stabilization Fund under the vertical revenue allocation.
The Commission will carefully assess the needs, service delivery obligations, fiscal performance, and development disparities. Let me state clearly that this review will be inclusive, data-driven, and transparent. It will involve broad-based consultations with critical stakeholders, including the Presidency, National Assembly, state governors, ALGON, the judiciary, MDAs, civil society organizations, traditional rulers, the organized private sector, and development partners. The Commission is also committed to integrating cutting-edge research, empirical data, and international best practices in its analysis.
Let's now join more business stories with Will.
Thank you, Anne. Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, Mr. Ekpe has reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to clean and sustainable energy across Africa as he commissioned a 40,000 cubic meter liquefied petroleum gas vessel in South Korea. The vessel, owned by West Africa Gas Limited, a joint venture between NNPCL and Sahara Group, raises Nigeria's LPG fleet capacity to 162,000 cubic meters. Officials say the move is expected to boost supply, enhance affordability, and strengthen regional access to cleaner fuel. From there, we head to the domestic equities market, which opened the trading week in positive territory. John Mekwa has the details.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the stock market report. Well, the market opens this week with marginal gains, 6 billion naira added to the market cap to bring it or to retain the 91,000 level. And this is after 3 sessions of losses that was recorded last week. The all share is in the green, 0.07%, but we haven't moved from the 144,000 level, which is what we closed with on Friday. Looking at the sectors, banking has lost that positive vibes that it closed with on Friday. Accessco, First Holdco, GTCO, UBA, and Zenith Bank had profit taken on them, and that has brought that down more than 1.5% for banking. But it's the opposite for consumer goods. Pleasant movement towards Dangote Sugar, Cadbury, and Honeywell Flour. And so we have, a positive one there. Oil and gas, however, is in the red. Japan Gold and O&O, they brought that. Top trades still gives us direction that insurance is still very much on the mind of a lot of investors. So we see Universal Insurance, well, champion is consumer goods, but you have a Lincoln Show also topping the trades for today. Well, a way to start the week is to start slowly. So it's not so loud, but it's the bull.
Thank you, Ini. Let's see the closing numbers for other major equities around the world. And that's business news. It's back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Will. Still to come on the news at 10, President Donald Trump says U.S. is ready to work with both Ukraine and Russia towards a long peace, with a trilateral meeting possibly ending the war in Ukraine. That's on the foreign scene. Do join us again. Welcome back. Preparations are in top gear in the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C., as European leaders as well as the Ukrainian president are all expected for that all-important meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. Let's now join Simon Puse with more international news and around the world in 5 from our London studio.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Donald Trump says it is a big day at the White House ahead of a meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky and key European leaders. Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Vladimir Putin of wanting to humiliate diplomatic efforts after 10 people were killed, including 2 children, in Russian strikes on Kharkiv. But Mr. Trump doesn't seem to think Vladimir Putin is responsible, writing earlier, President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. In reality, the only person who can end the war is Vladimir Putin, who invaded Ukraine in 2022 and who met Donald Trump in Washington on Friday. European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and the French President Emmanuel Macron are among those attending talks in Washington in an attempt to change President Trump's mind.
This war in Ukraine has been going on a really long time now, 3+ years. Hugely impacted the Ukrainians, who suffered hugely, but it's also impacted Europe, it's impacted every single family and community in the United Kingdom. And so everybody wants it to end, not least the Ukrainians. But we've got to get this right. We've got to make sure there is peace, that it is lasting peace, and that it is fair and that it is just. And that's why I'm travelling to Washington with other European leaders to discuss this face-to-face with President Trump and President Zelensky, because it's in everyone's interests, it's in the UK's interests that we get this right.
Hurricane Erin has strengthened to a Category 4 hurricane as it threatens to bring life-threatening surf and rip currents to the east coast of the United States. The rains caused by the storm are already beginning to hit the southeastern Bahamas and the Turk and Caicos Islands, where a tropical storm warning is in effect. While Erin is not expected to make landfall on the islands, it is expected to bring rainfall of up to 6 inches to islands including the eastern Bahamas. Erin, the first hurricane of the 2025 Atlantic season, explosively deepened and intensified on Saturday into a Category 5 storm before briefly losing force and is now regaining strength. Spain has sent 500 more troops to fight raging wildfires, bringing the total deployed to 1,900 as the death toll from the blazes has risen to 4. In neighbouring Portugal, where fires are also blazing, another firefighter was killed on Sunday. Fires have also broken out in Greece, France, Turkey and the Balkans as a heatwave has scorched swathes of southern Europe. According to official preliminary results, Bolivia is set to elect a non-left-wing president after nearly 2 decades of near-continuous rule by the incumbent Socialist Party. Senator Rodrigo Paz Piera and former President Jorge Quiroga came in first and second place respectively in Sunday's presidential elections. Neither received a high enough share of the vote to secure an outright win, so the vote will go to a runoff between the 2 candidates due in October. The Swiss watchmaker Swatch has apologised and pulled an ad featuring a model pulling the corner of his eyes after the image prompted uproar among Chinese social media users. Critics said the pose resembled the racist slanted eye historically used to mock Asians. Calls for a boycott of Swatch products grew on Chinese social media as the ad went viral. Swatch said it had taken note of the recent concerns regarding the portrayal of a model. And the Royal Albert Hall in London has hosted a special overnight prom, the first such event in more than 40 years. Proms from Dark Till Dawn was guest curated by organist and TikTok star Anna Lapwood.
It really has been one of those things where the energy in the room has just been so incredible.
Who performed choral classics with her choir from Pembroke College. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Super Eagles head coach Eric Schell wants his team to take tomorrow's game against Congo at the African Nations Championship as crucial as they must not head home winless in Group D. The Super Eagles team be a route of contention for a spot in the quarterfinal, but the team are playing for pride, having lost to Senegal and Sudan in the last 2 games. Coach Schell is also looking at making new changes in the clash for Tuesday.
For this game tomorrow, of course, there will be some changement because we lost 2 games and we need to change something. This is the term we gave because we did a lot of mistakes. So it's difficult for us mentally because the reality, the tournament is done for us. So this is why we talk about our honor. We need to come back in Nigeria with something.
FIFA President Gianni Infantino has condemned the alleged racial abuse which occurred during 2 German Cup fixtures on the weekend as unacceptable. On Sunday, a match between home side Lokomotiv Leipzig and Schalke was halted after winger Christopher Antwi-Ajay said he was racially abused by home spectators. Also on Sunday, a player from visiting side Kaiserslautern also alleged racial abuse from a member of the crowd at club RSV Eintracht. Infantino said FIFA would continue to closely monitor this incident and promised to work with the German FA in the fight against racism. And former France midfielder Lansana Diarra has restarted legal proceedings seeking £56 million in compensation from FIFA and the Royal Belgian Football Association. Diarra has had a long-running legal battle with World Football's governing body FIFA, with his legal team having challenged some of FIFA's rules after the termination of his contract with Lokomotiv Moscow in 2014. In October, the Court of Justice of the European Union found that the FIFA's rules which govern the way some football transfers work break European Union laws. That Sports is back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. Former Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo today urged African nations to build strong institutions to fight corruption and bad governance. He was speaking to participants of Course 39 at the Nigerian Defense Academy in Abuja. Contractors handling projects for the federal government and the FCT staged a protest over unpaid jobs. At 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Good night and please stay safe.